Now let's talk about the second principle of object-oriented programming, abstraction. Abstraction means that we should reduce complexity by hiding unnecessary details in our classes. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of the remote control of your TV. This remote control has a bunch of buttons that allow you to work with your TV. Inside the remote control, you have an electronic board, a bunch of transistors, and so on. Now, we don't directly work with these transistors. They're implementation detail. There's so much complexity there. We don't want to worry about that complexity. We don't care what happens inside that remote control when we press the turn on button. This is the abstraction principle in action. So the abstraction principle says that we should hide the unnecessary details in our classes, and this helps us reduce complexity. Let's say this in code. Let's say we want to implement a class for sending emails to our users. So let's add a new class. We call this mail service. In this class, we need a method for sending an email. So public void send email. Now in a real application here, we should have a parameter of type email, but let's not worry about it in this demo. Now, as part of sending an email, there are a number of things that should happen under the hood. We have to connect to a mail server. We have to authenticate. We have to send the email and then disconnect. So we could have a method like connect. In this method, we simply print a message like connect. Similarly, we can have a method called disconnect. And here we print this message. And let's add one more method, public void authenticate. Here we're going to send our username and password to the mail server. So let's say authenticate. Now, in our send email method, we're going to call these methods one by one. First, we're going to connect. Then we're going to authenticate. Next, we're going to send the actual email. And finally, we're going to disconnect. Now let's use this in our main class. So over here, let's create a mail service and set it to a new mail service. Now, look at the interface of this class. And by interface, I'm not talking about the interface construct in Java. I'm just talking about the interface of a class, like the interface of a remote control. What we see on that remote control, or what we see in this class. Here we have 4 methods, but the first 3 are implementation detail. We don't care about this. We don't care about connecting to a mail server. We don't care about authentication. All we care about is the ability to send an email. So these 3 methods are adding extra complexity to this class. They're making it harder for the consumers of this class to use this class. So we applied the abstraction principle. We go to our mail service and make these methods private. Now they are implementation detail and they're hidden from outside of this class. One more time. We make this private and one last time. Now, back in the main class, look at the interface of this class. It has a single method. It's much easier to use. It's like a remote control with only 4 buttons. Have you seen how hard it is to use one of those remote controls that have 50 buttons? You really don't know how to use them. If you want to change the volume, you have to look all over the place. Now, this mail service class has a single method. It's very easy to use. And more importantly, if we change any of those private methods, the main class is not going to get affected. So if I introduce a parameter in this method, let's say timeout, the only break and change that we have is over here. The main class is not affected because the main class cannot see the connect method. This is the benefit of applying the abstraction principle. We can change the implementation detail without affecting other classes in our application. Next, we're going to talk about inheritance.